Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Veg Networking Canada. It's important to honor, acknowledge, and respect that many of us are located on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of many Indigenous peoples of Canada. So here we are, Veg Networking Canada, where vegan plant-based companies and people connect and collaborate. Today, we have a special guest who is a client experience-centric entrepreneur, always ready for disruption, a passionate public speaking proponent of the power of home ownership, and a self-proclaimed nerd with a deep love for film, videography, and the creative process. Veg Networking Canada is pleased to welcome award-winning mortgage broker, partner, and co-founder of the 2022 CMP rated #2 mortgage team in Canada, Thrive Mortgage Co. Welcome, Alex McFadyen.
Well done, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on, and that was a mouthful. So thanks for saying that. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to, the entire audience, everybody out here who's enjoying this conversation and content. It's a really cool platform that you guys have built, and I'm excited to not only be involved, but learn more about the direction that everyone is hoping to take.
Well, we are so happy for you to share some of your time with us, to share more about you personally and your business professionally, as this is a group designed for entrepreneurs and business-focused folks. So with that being said, let's start a little bit more maybe on the personal side, which really brings us all together. Can you tell us more about your vegan or plant-based, whatever you like to call it, your origin story and how that started for you?
So, just like most people, I grew up standard Canadian diet, so to speak, and lifestyle. And I think it was probably 2015 initially where the gears started turning, where I started contemplating, after a conversation with my wife, the idea of actually going vegetarian. And that was purely a diet-based conversation at that time. It wasn't until end of 2015, I believe, if I have my numbers correctly, where we had an experience traveling in Thailand, which I love. What a beautiful country, by the way. Where we had multiple experiences with not only getting sick multiple times, which everyone does, but in an extreme way. But we also, this one stuck with me, by the way, in case you're wondering. We went through a meat market, and it was an accident. We went through like a shopping mall, and it turned into a meat market, and it was like completely horrifying for both of us. Not because we were ignorant, but I suppose maybe we were in some ways ignorant to obviously what you see and what happens. And it wasn't horrifying in the way like, oh my goodness, I'm going to run away. It was kind of just like eye-opening, and we were just like, wow, this is really disturbing. And it really struck a chord. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because this one could go on for a while. But basically, on the plane ride back after our trip, we looked at each other and we're like, we've been talking about this vegetarian thing for a few years now. Like, that was a pretty awful experience. What are your thoughts on that? And we literally talked for 12 hours about this. And so when we get home, let's do some research into this, because if we're going to do anything, it has to be sustainable. I'm exceptionally habit-based. So when I do things, it pretty much has to continue on, or I need to be able to do so. And so we came home, we did some reading, watched some documentaries, some things like that. And really quickly made the decision, let's go vegetarian with zero plan, unfortunately. And that was boom, right into it. I would say from a dietary perspective, we failed pretty miserably. We found ourselves just eating a lot of sugar and bread and wondering what the heck we're doing and being very healthy. But over the course of, I'd say, 6 months, it started to impact how, like, we started to figure it out, right? What we could eat, what we couldn't eat. And by the end of 6 months, I believe, started to figure out, okay, we can eat these things. We're starting to feel better. I can exercise. I can still have muscle. I can still, move and do those types of things. The end of the year, I went on a trip. Again, going on trips is what brings epiphanies. And we'd already talked about going vegan. We just didn't feel like it was sustainable. And that was a big thing for us. It was like just a matter of being sustainable for our lifestyle, because it felt already like a huge change for someone who was eating like chicken breast and fish every single day and I didn't know the whole complexity of it or the world behind it. So yeah, I went on a trip. Literally, it was simple as this. I watched that documentary on Netflix that was Game Changers. And it was like, I can do this. Like, I actually can do this. These guys can do it. They figured it out. And all the things that they were talking about were reasons why we made the move. And it was just like, okay, I can just make this one little tweak and I'm there. And so initially it was literally the animal side of things. Like, it was purely, okay, this is freaking me out. I don't like this. I don't like what they're doing to my food and what's going on. And you obviously know, maybe actually listeners don't know, I have now 3 pugs, dogs, but my wife and I are just huge animal advocates. Like we in the sense that we just love them, like going different places, seeing them, petting them, feeling them, touching them, whatever. We're kind of geeks like that. But it became like, okay, well, like, I don't like what's happening here. We don't like the way that they're mistreated. And I think we can make a small change. We're not the type of people perhaps that would be rallying on social media about it per se, but we're the type of people that's like, if we can make a small change, let's just take care of home base, and it can help out obviously the grander scheme of things, if that makes sense. So that was a change that I opted to make. Now she's opted to remain primarily a vegetarian, but mostly vegan. And that's more of a, for her sense, a dietary, and I respect that. But we both have the same beliefs and reasons for why we decided to go that direction. So yeah, the game changer one was big. And I think if anybody here has watched that documentary, it was pretty powerful. Whether whether you've seen it or not, you can check it out. And there were a lot of things that stood out that really struck a chord. So basically moved right into learning how to be a vegan diet wise, literally a week after I got back from that trip. And just like the previous situation, failed pretty hard for a little while there, trying to figure out what constituted or what didn't constitute as being a vegan. So it's been since I guess this would be 2017 that I went all vegan. I think that's the year, if I can recall correctly. I don't know it down to the month or the day. I'd probably have to trace it back to the specific trip that I went on, that I've remained vegan. The reasons, like for me, like everybody has their own reason. I think it's super important that you have something that's important to you, a reason. Like initially it started with just our experience in the animal market, to the broader scale of what the impact is on the not the economy. Oh my God, I'm thinking about numbers all the time here. What's my brain?
The climate.
Thank you. Holy crap. As you can tell, I'm a mortgage broker. But yeah, the climate, and then it just started to trickle into different things. It became easier to find meaning in different areas that was impactful to us, and it just felt right, and it felt good, and it felt easy to continue on with that kind of just positive mentality. I would say for me, my perspective, and I don't know if anybody else that's listening to this, is like certainly the diet piece is a big part of it too. Like quite literally, my body reacted way better when I eliminated a lot of the animal and dairy products. Specifically, it was just layer after layer, as I mentioned. So first went dairy, and then went meat, and then went other items and so forth. And that was, yeah, that's probably the thing that makes it the easiest to sustain, is that I know how I feel within reason. So yeah, hopefully that answered your question. It was a long answer, but hopefully I answered it.
Absolutely, it answered it. And I think it's going to be a great answer for those who are going to be listening, because it comes across as though it's not something maybe as big as people initially make it out to be. It can be in stages. And no, I think that's great. So turning from personal to professional, in your intro, we talked about Thrive Mortgage Co., award-winning, #2 rated CMP. Did your entrepreneurial spark start with the current business that you have, or was there something, or even currently happening previous to that?
Yeah, well, I worked as an independent broker by myself before the Thrive brand became anything. As far as the entrepreneurial spark, everybody has like this story of being a kid and having tried something. So actually mine started when I was in high school, when I got into film, and I started filming skateboard videos. And that was what kind of got me started, because I would have kids that would pay me to create videos and then produce and edit them for them. And so it was like an accidental entrepreneurial environment. And that turned into creating nowhere near probably what Jim does, but a variation of like graphics and media and so forth that I was creating mostly for the visual medium. That moved me into going into a brief experience for 1 year at Capilano College for the film program. And it just kind of kept sparking. Like I would sit down with, there was a couple of guys that I would had a program with, and we started creating like different types of content and like selling it for brands or people, and like I said, skateboard, snowboard videos, all that kind of stuff was just natural because of the people that we hung out with. So that was where it started probably. And then it evolved into like, I literally created a t-shirt line when I was like 19 years old, and it lasted for like a year, but it was a cool experience. It was fun to do. I did all the research and went through that. Evolved, obviously I started working for a company for a number of years. And during that experience, I put myself through a marketing management degree. Took me about 7 years to do the degree because I was working full time at the same time. So that was where, with the entrepreneurship focus, and so that was where it kind of like kept leading to. 2011 is when I got licensed in this industry, which was almost like an accident. I had someone who basically said like, "Hey man, you'd be really good at this thing with houses." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Let me help you buy one and then you'll know all about it." So he actually was a mortgage broker who helped me buy my first property. So kudos to him. And that was actually 2009. He got me convinced to get my license, and I finally completed in 2011. The evolution of this company, Thrive, has been crazy, man. Like I got licensed 2011, had no idea what I was doing. Like realistically, it took like 3 or 4 years before I was able to grasp anything. 2015 is what I like to call people like my reconnaissance, like really is where things clicked. And the reason for that is because I had a reason. I got really sick in 2014 where I was in the hospital for quite a while. And it was that wake up call. Okay, like you need to take this seriously. And so I did. And from 2015 to 2019, my business grew double. 2019, I created a partnership, which is what Thrive is right now. And we've doubled again year after year. Aside from this year, which was still incremental growth, which we're exceptionally proud of. Yeah, it just keeps going in different directions, which has been phenomenal. The primary focus with this business is not necessarily doing more, but being better. We mentioned client experience is an absolute obsession of mine. It doesn't always work. It's not always perfect, but that's the point of being an entrepreneur, is to learn and try different things. And so it's kind of led me to where we are today. That was a real fast forward, but again, hopefully that gives you the gist of it.
Perfect. And you mentioned something about it kept sparking, and that's such an interesting, because that is what entrepreneurship is, the entrepreneurial spirit. You constantly stoke it, constantly spark it, constantly feed it, to your point too, constantly iterate and improve. Very interesting. It's always great for us and everybody listening to hear those very junior entrepreneur spark. How did it start? And for you, it was selling, skateboard videos to your friends. Very interesting story. Thank you for sharing. So the next question for you, as it relates to the mortgage industry that you're deep in, the question for you is, what are some trends, or maybe not trends, or transformations? What are some trends or transformations in your industry that you have caught on to in the last little bit?
Trends or transformation, are we referring specifically to a position where someone is looking to get involved into real estate, or from the back end perspective, looking at what's changing and what's evolving?
It sounds like you would have a good answer for either or both.
Right. Okay. Well, as a user or client user, I'd say the biggest trends is how they're receiving information has changed dramatically. And since I started in the industry, when I started, the information was very difficult to come by, and it was you couldn't really research information about mortgages unless you were reading books, and it was very rare for someone to do that. So I would say that more frequently we're seeing more educated people getting involved or asking good questions. The challenge that has been associated with that is that a lot of the information isn't fact checked or valid, and so we find that often people come with preconceived conceptions of what they can do or can't do, but it might have been based off a US program or something else, or really, the information could just be invalid because they watched a YouTube video and the guy was trying to sell something and got them into it. And so, the positive is that we're finding people to be more educated and want more information. That is my favorite thing, because if anybody follows me, and I hope people do on even Instagram, it's all about educating people and opening eyes and creating awareness. The challenges have been trying to almost like walk back incorrect information, and then also continue to create trust, because it's harder to build trust now than ever, because people get so much information and are sold from so many different angles. So we always work on how to create trust sooner in a relationship. Internally in the industry, our industry has been one where for the past 7 years, every year we've been told that the computers are going to take over and our industry is going to be basically gone within, back in 2017, I went to a conference and they said 3 years from now, there's only going to be like 5% of you left. And the crazy thing is mortgage brokers have taken on the market share has grown by over double since that time from a mortgage professional perspective. And what we're seeing is from our side of things, that people who actually run the difference though is a lot of the fringe mortgage professionals, the part-timers, are struggling and probably going to be gone, because the cost of being in this business, if you actually want to perform, is that you have to actually run a good business which has a client experience focus, which isn't just I'm going to write this information in an Excel sheet. There are so many more things that people want. The information, how the market works, the rules, the regulations, and all these things change so fast in the last, even just the last 3 years, when compared to the 7 years before that. There's been 3 times as many changes in that period of time, that if you're not on top of it and you aren't looking at this every single day, there's no way you can keep up with it. So from an interesting perspective, we've actually seen that a lot of the online lenders are struggling right now. And I think they will continue to do so, because people more now than ever want to work with a professional who understands and break these things down and articulate them.
Absolutely. So it sounds like the trends that you're spotting from a consumer standpoint is a hunger for that knowledge, a hunger for that information. And then on the other side is being able to disseminate that information clearly. And to your point, don't just do it half time, like be a specialist in what it is that you're doing. So that's very great.
That and use technology. Justin, sorry to interrupt you, but people demand that they can see things in a way that they want to receive them. And so that includes using that technology to share the information, which is a lot of what we've implemented. Sorry to interrupt you on that.
No, and you interrupt as many times as you want. This is a spotlight on you and your business. You're the specialist here. So absolutely, yeah. Financial technology, fintech, big transformation for sure. Now you briefly kind of walked us through Thrive and hitting doubles, right? Doubling the business, and all of that. Feel free to explain a little bit further, walking us up to where you guys currently are, or just as a jumping off point from where you are now. The question for you is, where is Thrive Mortgage Co? Where is Alex McFadyen going in the future?
Yeah, so where we're at right now from a company perspective is we've focused exceptionally hard in the last 24 months of improving, as I mentioned before, the process to, like, we grew so fast in 2 or 3 years that you do so much business or volume that you have to ask yourself the question, is this either A, sustainable, or B, is it in a way that we can continue to grow the business in the way that we see it and not lose the quality? And so we spent the last 12 months, hired a consultant to come into our business to help us find ways that we could improve the quality and also grow the company. And so we took a step back, stopped the hiring, focused on the training, building up the team. And where we're at today is, wow, we've come a long way in 12 months. We have currently 15 of us. There are 4 advisors now. We've elevated someone. We've created an apprenticeship program it's basically a 2-year program, which is, as far as I know, not found in the industry, where someone can learn the industry in and out. They have to go through certain experiences and certain level of work to get to this point, but they can become an advisor with us. Now compare that to someone else who in mortgage space who could literally go through a 6-month exam, which teaches you nothing, and can boom, start advising. These people will have seen somewhere between 300 to 500 mortgage transactions and worked with countless families and situations side by side to get to that point. So where we're at today is we're trying to develop a model where professionals in our industry can be better and offer more. And we would like to continue to grow our base sustainably. So that means helping more clients and more families. We'd like to help at least 25% more families in the next 12 months, which would mean over 1,000 people. And we're inviting people looking for an experience to reach out to us about that. So that's one thing. We also do have a goal to improve the way that the industry is done on the inside. So we've started our own brokerage, which has allowed us to control compensation, create clarity where it needs to be done. So a lot of people don't realize this, and you probably do, Justin, but in the financial industry, there's a lot of people who get paid a lot of money who aren't involved in your business. And we've been learning a lot about that last couple of years. And our goal is to ensure that the people who are actually doing the business get paid so that they can take care of other people and spend that money on their business to improve the client experience. Basically, at the end of the day, make sure the people that are doing the work earn the income that they deserve. So that's been a big thing for us from an industry perspective. And then from a personal perspective, I also coach and coach typically mortgage professionals who run teams on how to improve their businesses as well, which has been a very rewarding experience. And yeah, just been something I just like doing, probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, it sounds like where you personally and the business is going in the future is just furthering that dissemination of quality, precision information, just at scale to at the end of the day, help more people, help more families, help more Canadians.
Yep,
Very,
absolutely.
very awesome. So the next question, all these questions, no right or wrong answers, but specifically this one, and it might be something that you've done in the past personally, maybe the company in the past, maybe it is something that is currently happening, or maybe something in the pipeline to be looked at. But the question is, what does Alex or Thrive do from a charity giving back perspective?
Yeah, great question. So it's been something that I get asked a lot. So the nature of being in doing, I guess I should say, running a successful business, in my opinion, is that a lot of people ask you for donations and so forth, a regular occurrence. So we've had to really, in the last 12 to 24 months, get focused, because it used to just be like here, there, so forth. And it's actually, believe it or not, it is oddly enough exhausting sometimes. So you do have to be clear in that intention and be okay with saying no, so you can give more to other people. So a cause that I almost fell into was just the nature of relationships that I had, which is a few. One is Honor House, and that's basically I don't know if anybody knows this, but it's a house in New Westminster that supports first responders, military, a number of other people who have had either medical issues or emergencies, and they have to come to the Lower Mainland. They have nowhere to stay. It could be people who are dealing with mental health, physical health, sickness, families, you name it. And the reason that became important to me was just honestly my friends. I have a lot of friends who are involved in the RCMP, who are first responders, who are in other places that protect us on a regular basis, and just knowing them really well, knowing what they do, I fell into it and just started working together with other people in our industry to consistently raise money. I typically don't post about it. I don't share a lot about it, other than the odd time here and there. We prefer to do it silently behind the scenes, but that one has been one that stuck for a few years at this point right now. Aside from that, obviously, I've attended multiple other types of galas and so forth, but that's the one I should say that for me personally. My business partners have their own causes that they tend to support, so I won't speak on their behalf as far as what they have done or what they choose to do. We've kind of worked it out that way, where each of us can pick and choose what's important to us, but that's the one that I've consistently done. And we do other things outside of that. You know, we were a part of arranging, a food bank drive last week and so forth, and just helping out the community from that perspective. But again, that's more piecemeal. As it comes up, we support when we can. The Honor House is the one that's consistent. As a side note, I mean, it's really neat to see the impact on I should say the community, the first responders community, when you are involved. It's a very tight knit group of people, and they don't really let people in. And so, especially when you come and you do these things without looking for anything, it's rewarding, like any type of charitable work, I imagine.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's so great for people to hear that, particularly because it's not something that you often share about. So it's happy to have you here and use the platform to share that. The Honor House, that's so great. So the next question for you, Alex, is centered around real tangible tools that you might be able to just say has helped you along your journey. And it might be specific to mortgage, specific to health, specific to travel, who knows, right? But the intention here is, what are some books, podcasts, or even apps on your phone? You had mentioned a documentary of Game Changers, but let's keep it to books, podcasts, or apps that you would recommend that people might not have heard of, that helps you become a better leader, entrepreneur, coach in the space, that kind of thing.
Yeah, great question. Oh boy, like can I send you a list of the 50 books? No, there's so I have a love-hate with books. I'm not very good at actually picking up and reading a physical book and finishing it. It's a terrible experience. But audiobooks, here we go. Like, I can talk about that. There's a few that what I've found is that I have different books at different stages that I will go and listen to, and I might listen to them more than once, and I'll go back to them. And there's just different stages of my life or my career that have impacted me. One that really stuck with me is oh my goodness, give me one quick second here. It's obviously not stuck with me that good because I'm reading a different book right now. Oh my goodness. I hope you guys aren't recording this part. We'll have to go back and re-edit it. Unfortunately, sorry guys. I prepared it before I came on the show and I didn't have it back. Give me a quick second. I'm forgetting the title. It's by Gay Hendricks is the name of the author, and he refers to the genius zone. Give me 30 seconds here because I'll find the book. I've actually listened to it like 3 times. So fail on my end, guys, but we'll get there. Anyways, while we're going to look forward, I will advise you of a second book that really stuck to me in the last few months that we might find impactful. It's called Who Not How. I'm not sure if you've heard of that one. Who Not How, Dan Kennedy. Everybody's probably heard of Dan Kennedy. He has been a business coach for the better part of the last 25 years for entrepreneurs. So Who Not How basically educates you and teaches you on not trying to be the person, not knowing how to do everything, but find the person who knows how to do the thing. Kind of like Jamie was mentioning as he started the call here today about he finds people, Jim, I should say, sorry, as he finds people who do things exceptionally well. I found the name of the book. Now I don't look so silly. It's called The Big Leap. I always forget the name because I always think of the concept, and the concept is the genius zone that you find. And so basically the way that he builds it out is that there's different quadrants of who you are and how you succeed. And it's trying to find out to be in that state of flow. That's that place where essentially time just passes, where you're working, but you don't feel like it. You're earning money, you're making connections, things are happening. So it basically is talking about how to find that state of flow and what you do, and to enjoy your life more, because your work is enjoyable, more or less. That was a terrible explanation, but you get the idea, I think. So from a book perspective, now we know what the book's called. That's what I'm referring to here at this point right now. And then the who, not how is the second big one for me. Podcast is tough, man, because I probably have like 10 on rotation. It depends, because I'll get annoyed by one or bored and I'll move on to the next one. Right now, the podcast I'm listening to is from an entrepreneurial perspective, is Alex Hormozy's podcast. I don't know what it's called, but HORMOZI. I'm very interested in this guy because he's literally just, from a media perspective, blown everything up in 12 months. And he talks about how he did it. He literally explains to you how he's doing it and what's going on. And so there's no vague speaking about anything. It's very specific, which I love. He step by step, this is what you do, this is how you do it, this is how I did it. And the way that he talks about it is just interesting to me. So from a podcast perspective, I'd say that one was a big one that stood out. But like day-to-day for tools perspective, one thing that's been really helpful for me is to actually use a physical book that I write on every single day. And I talked about how I'm a habit-based person. And so every single morning I have this book that I use, and it helps me articulate what my focus is for the day. So I usually have a focus for the day. I have a few specific items I need to accomplish, and then I have certain people I have to touch base with. And so this allows me to do that, as well as a variety of other small tasks that I'm working on a regular basis. From a media perspective, as you guys know, like my tools are basically social media and Instagram. My phone is my weapon, and that's how I reach a lot of people. I do a lot of video content creation, and I have a person on my team that helps me create a lot of that. So I'm not sure if that's a tool that will help someone, but like you could do that just with your phone if you wanted to. And I use Instagram as essentially my primary communication tool externally or outside speaking. I feel like there's probably more tools there, but I struggled enough to remember a book, so I'm probably going to leave it at that and move on. But
No,
those are my few things.
yeah, no, that's absolutely perfect. And these conversations are so great because it does allow people watching or listening to get an idea of what it is like to have a conversation with Alex. And that's why it's so interesting when people do have different answers all the time. It doesn't matter if you forget a title of a book or whatever it might be, you found it, it's all good. And there is a lot of maybe not trends, but a lot of professionals who are saying bringing it back to pen and paper for them is really, really powerful. And you had mentioned that too, sort of like with your clarity journal or whatever you call it, right? Like how good pen to paper and writing in a book actually can make an entrepreneur work. And that's great. So it might be an apparel company. It might be something related to mortgages. It might be something related to pubs, who knows? But the question is, are there places that you find inspiration from? And I guess to further that question is sort of like, maybe what does inspiration mean to you? And how does that question land for you? And if someone asked you, where do you find your inspiration, Alex?
Not a company. I saw that and I was like, I don't really think there's like a company. There's people, individuals, like we talked about. You know, I'll find an individual like Alex Hormozy or a variety of other people that will just interest me for a period of time, and I'll learn more about them. Inspiration in terms of my company is, I would say, internalized in many ways based on my desire to grow and learn more and have a greater impact. And the impact that you have, and this is something I've learned for a long time. A lot of people talk about why, like, why do you do something? And your why can change, and that's okay. And I think people feel like they have to have this huge resounding why in order to do something. It can never change. And I've learned that that's just not the case. Your why can evolve as life goes on, as your business grows. And I think you have to do that in order to A, stay fresh, and B, stay focused. You know, when I was first starting in the business, my why was exceptionally different than it is today. And I didn't have a team, and I didn't have certain people to wake up to, and I didn't have a variety of other things. Right. So I feel like I have a why at home. I have a why here, but it's so easy to just, like, if we're talking about business and entrepreneurship, it's so easy to potentially, once you've hit a certain level of success, to just coast. But I don't know that feeling, because I always feel as though I have to continue to grow and progress from a personal perspective inside. Not answering your question as it pertains to, like, companies or anything like that I follow per se. And, but I think it's just really understanding, I don't know, again, if I'm going off track here, but just really getting a really dig deep into who the heck are you, and what is it that you're doing, and what continues to propel you. And so for me, it's asking those questions on a regular basis and refocusing your mind on a regular basis, whether it's through meditation or writing or sitting down or reading or talking to people. It's, yeah, I mean, that's been pretty big. Again, I'm trying to circle back to your thought about like different kinds of companies that inspire me, but it's not anything. It's more back to that book that I mentioned, the Genius Zone. It's that or the I can't even get the name of the book right. It doesn't matter. It goes back to that Genius Zone. I'm absolutely obsessed with figuring out where that state of flow is and being in that state of flow in a way that brings value to the people that I'm talking to, so that they see it as something genuine and that it's meant to be, and where there's two sides that are creating such exceptional value that something amazing happens and something magical happens. So I guess it's evolving is the answer to your question.
Yeah, and again, no right or wrong answers to these questions, and the way that you actually in how you interpreted that question and delivered your answer is interesting, because it's coming across as inspiration is something to be found internally and then to then share, versus looking outside. So very interesting. No right or wrong answers. It's an awesome perspective. So it's a nice answer as well into our last question for you, our conversation starter for you, which is centered around tips, wisdom, advice. And we always tell people, we are asking for advice, tips, wisdom, things like that. So if being modest is your style, for sure, go for it. But we are asking to kind of pull out these little nuggets for you, whether it is from a entrepreneurship, industry agnostic lens, or maybe it is something specific to mortgages. The last question for you is, can you share some advice, wisdom, tips, tricks?
Well, I think it starts with where I ended off with the reason why you're doing something. Typically, I'll use an example. I do a presentation sometimes in front of people in the industry regarding like how to have success when it comes to video or social media. And one of the first things that I talk to people about is that the reason that you're jumping on and creating these videos or this content is because you want quote unquote leads or clients. You're going to fail immediately because that reason isn't strong enough for the purpose of what you're doing. If you're just commenting on someone's work because it's because you know that you're trying to get a lead, whatever, is it's not going to last. It's not going to be impactful. People can see through it. It's no different than like a dog. As you know, I'm a dog guy. They can sense your energy. People can sense energy too. And maybe not in the metaphysical sense, but just generally speaking, they can get it. It's just natural or it's not. You can pick it up pretty easily, right? So the point of what I'm trying to say is the first thing that someone needs to do if they're looking at making either a change or they're in a business where they're struggling is to dig a little bit deeper and ask them the purpose of what they're doing is. And if you can't come to a conclusion, at least in a short period of time, or writing it down, then you should probably take a step back and really work on yourself first. You need to figure out what's important or what's impactful to you from a life perspective. What's also important to know when you're searching for that is that, first of all, it doesn't have to be, as I mentioned before, some big, I'm going to change the world thing. Everyone has this, I have to like impact a million families or do this. It doesn't have to be like that. Think about helping one person. Think about changing one person's life, two people's life. How can you do that? Or in whatever it is that you do, having a positive impact. I think for me, that's the next person I talk to, I'm going to bring all my energy so that I can positively impact them in that way that, has a lasting impression. So think about what that why is and get deep on that before you decide to create your content or help a client or start your business or move forward. That's why most people fail, is because they get to that point where like they've been working at it for 2 years and they're going like this, and then all of a sudden they stop before the line goes up, right? Or they have the typical that sort of thing there. So I mean, I'd say start with that. Like anybody who's struggling or being challenged in any market, and we are entering a challenging market right now from a financial perspective. A lot of businesses might struggle. The cost of everything is going up. You may not be earning the money that you earned for a 1 year period. And it just feels like it's a test to us. COVID tested us. The insanity of 2021 tested us. 2022 and 2023 are going to test us in a different way. But if you feel strong in your purpose or your belief, then you're going to dig deeper and do that. People ask me a lot right now because, hey, the markets must be falling off a cliff. It must be challenging. You must be struggling right now. And be like, hey, maybe I'm not earning making as much money from a financial perspective, but no, I'm working like 10 to 12 hours a day, absolutely obsessed. Like this is, I've done 2 podcasts this morning. I've already met with 3 partners. I've already had, I think, 4 or 5 planning consultations. I've already spent an hour working on improving, email templates, right? So at the end of the day, it's putting in the time and the energy to ensure that even if things aren't out on the outside world going the way you want, that you focus on the inside, because that's going to continue to evolve. And if it doesn't work, then reevaluate it. Ask people for help. Look for questions. That's the neat thing about a community like this or other entrepreneurial communities. If you find the right group of people, you can just ask for freaking help right now. It's okay. It's not a bad thing. I think the last thing I'll leave you with is, because it is important to me, is and I don't talk about it very much publicly, is during these times when we are, or if you are having challenges anytime, is the mental part of it, right? The mental game. And I mean that, I don't have to go as deep as talking about quote unquote mental health, but I think it is a consideration as to how you're feeling, and start to look at yourself and say, like, where am I at right now? Doing a little bit of a check and seeing if you're okay emotionally, mentally, and if you need to talk to somebody or look at how you're taking care of yourself. The reason I'm talking about this right now is because I know we're going into harder times. I know that the cost of everything is rising. Mortgage rates are going up. I'm having these calls every single day with people, and a lot of people are in an emotionally terrible state because they're also not looking at themselves and saying, okay, what do I got to do to take care of myself right now, to make sure that I can be good for other people. So it's not really a hack or a tip, but it's just more of an entrepreneurial world advice. It can be exceptionally lonely in this industry, exceptionally lonely in any industry. As an entrepreneur, you always feel lonely, even if you have a team of people around you. So you need to take a little bit of time to like reset, rewind, and find that you time, find that selfish thing, or those selfish things that you can do that make you happy, that make you feel good, that make you, ensure that you're centered and ground. And like I said, it doesn't matter if it's snowboarding or meditating or yoga or working on woodwork. It doesn't matter, but like give yourself that grace, because otherwise what I often see happen, and I've seen this in my industry in particular, is when things aren't going well, people grind themselves to the bone, and they don't give themselves the grace of saying, okay, I can slow down, I can take care of myself, and perhaps I need to talk to somebody. So if you're ever feeling like whatever that is, like reach out to somebody in that space. But things are going to go good. Things are going to get better. They're all going to get better. You just have to have that mindset. Easier said at this point right now, Justin, because I've been through now a couple of these kind of up and down periods. But if you're the first couple of years in your business, or you're just not finding traction, like just stick with it.
Fabulous. So just to recap the wisdom there in terms of scheduling your own health first. Like, so when we look at our calendar, we're very apt to just schedule everything else, but maybe taking some time to actually schedule those things in to make it a priority. Financial anxiety is always going to be a pain point for a lot of people. So whether,
Reach out for help.
Exactly, ask for help. It's actually a sign of strength. So that's what you're saying. And then you'd mentioned this a few times throughout the conversation today, and that is, stop maybe thinking of all the noise and just bring it back to base and bring it back to home and start there, and then move out one step at a time, sort of thing. So very, very, very amazing. So Alex, it was a great conversation, learning a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your business and your place in the industry and your place in the market. And before we tell people the Thrive website and Instagram, as well as your own personal, is there any announcements or anything else that you just want to leave the listeners with?
Announcements, oh boy. Well, the nature of what I do obviously is in finance right now, and I think right now more than ever people are uncertain if you have a mortgage right now or if you're planning to get one. There's a lot of uncertainty. We have gone out and created a variety of resources, but we've also started to doing what we call in our industry basically adopting a mortgage. We've kind of opened the doors to people who already have a loan. Maybe they're stressed out and they don't know what to do, to reach out, book a call, and we'll just, like, no cost to them, just walk them through what their options are at this point right now, my partners and I. And that's been very, very well received, very well received. And it's in most cases, just here's some advice, here's what you can do, walking through the situation, here's a tool to help you with X, Y, or Z. So from a day-by-day perspective, if there's anybody in this group that's having that feeling or experience and has a loan, I would start there. But other than that, I would say if anybody wants to learn more about the real estate space, check out our podcast, and you learn a lot of information that could be helpful for you as time goes on. If getting involved in the industry from a perspective of owning more or investing is something that's impactful to you, that's something that we do a lot of. So I guess
Perfect. Excellent. And so anybody, listeners, vegan, plant-based, you connect on that vision, values metric, and you do want a mortgage health checkup, you know exactly where to go. And so You can find out more online, www.thrivemortgage.ca. And on Instagram, it is at Thrive Mortgage Co. And Alex's personal information is www.alexmcfadyen.com and at the Mortgage Pug.
I would say go to the Thrive website and the Mortgage Pug for sure. You'll have a lot of fun. Lots of puppies.
Possum, very possum. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Alex. And it was a pleasure to learn more about you and what is happening with Thrive Mortgage Co. And everybody listening, we'll catch you soon on another episode of Veg Networking Canada. Take care. Bye for now.
Thanks, guys.